What's up, fellas? In the first of today's videos, we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics. Things are tough for this team right now. There's no other way to put it. I mean, this is a team that I thought was going to be like a top 3 team in the East. And right now, they just lost to the Hawks. And they're the 8th seed in the East. They have the same record as the New York Knicks. No disrespect to the Knicks. They'd have a nice season, so far compared to the expectations for this team. And the Chicago Bulls have a better record right now than the Boston Celtics. It's a tough time right now to be a Celtics fan. In this video, we're going to talk about things that's wrong with this group, things they could possibly do to make some changes and improve, and just kind of the overall situation the Celtics are in right now, and it's not a very good one. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. If you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. I upload NBA content on this channel twice a day, every single day. So it's the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well if you're enjoying it, and you can check me out at various socials at the bottom of the screen and a link tree down in the description below. With those things said, let's talk about the Boston Celtics. And it's weird because when I looked into this team and, watched plenty of stuff on them, I was thinking, okay, there's got to be a glaring issue here, because when you watch them, from night to night, there are just various different issues, and you're thinking the numbers should bear that out, that there should be one specific thing that this group is really struggling with. But weirdly, they're just unbelievably average. And if you're a Celtics fan, you'd almost rather it be a glaring issue. You'd almost rather be one of the worst defensive teams in the league or one of the worst offensive teams in the league. And they're just middle of the pack in pretty much everything. And that makes it really difficult to find the solution, right? Like if it was clear that you needed more scoring punch, that's easy to trade for. Or it's clear you need more lineup versatility or rim protection, that's easy to trade for. But there's something potentially intangible missing with this group. I think there are basketball issues that I'll get to, but I also think that, there's just not as much energy and heart. I know it's a weird year. I know there's guys missing games for all kinds of different reasons, but that's the case with every team. And I think the bottom line here is that there's really no excuse for them to be this bad. Yes, Marcus Smart has been hurt. Kemba Walker hasn't been great. It's a weird season. But ultimately, a team with this talent level does not have built-in excuses, and they should be better than they are. Now, in terms of the basketball issues, specifically, there is a significant lack of creativity in the backcourt. Whether Kemba plays or not, it just kind of depends on if Kemba has a good game. But if Kemba's not playing well or he's not playing, pretty much nobody in the backcourt is anybody that you can count on to create a shot, to initiate anything in ball screens. And yes, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been great, but they're both wings, and at times it can be tough to initiate the offense through your wings. And you don't want to have those guys on the ball literally every possession. You want them to be on the wing sometimes, attacking closeouts, things like that, getting to the rim, rather than having to do quite literally everything. It's very tough to create a top-tier offense around only wings. You need backcourt creativity, and ideally Kemba Walker would be providing that, but he's not. And as you look at the rest of the roster, it's a significant issue. And honestly, again, assuming Kemba's having an off night or he's not playing, the other 3 guys that are on the floor with Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, or the other 4 guys, depending on if one or both of them are on the floor, are pretty much non-existent. They're not really doing anything. You don't really even notice them out there. They're kind of in the way on defense, but not in a way that really gets your attention. And offensively, again, there's no creativity. The shot making is limited, and you're just kind of looking at this roster and thinking, is there actually as much talent here as we thought? I think we looked at the roster at the beginning of the year. It was unfortunate that Hayward ended up leaving, but they still got Jeff Teague, they got Tristan Thompson, Kemba should be good, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and both those guys started the year incredibly well. They're both all-stars, and still they're under 500. And I just think that some of the guys they brought in, like Thompson and Teague, have not been as impactful as they would have hoped that they would have been. And they're missing Gordon Hayward right now. As weird as it is to say, I think he's the most backcourt, adjacent wing that they had last year, as a guy that, could create some, could get in the mid-range and score, was a good passer. And, sometimes the games of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum offensively feel a bit more rigid and have a little bit less flow than what Gordon Hayward brought to the table. And certainly Hayward wasn't always great, but, if he was on this team, I think they would be better. And I think you could make the argument that you'd rather have Hayward right now than what Kemba Walker is giving you. Not that that was ever really a choice for them in the first place, but it's just a really awkward group right now. Now, having said that, there are certainly some moves to be made here. And, the sky isn't necessarily falling completely, but this is certainly not the year that you were hoping to have if you were a Celtics fan. We've talked about the trade exception in multiple different videos. Right now, if I'm them, I probably would have rather had Miles Turner and Doug McDermott on the roster already, rather than counting on this trade exception, potentially adding someone midseason or in the offseason. I probably would have rather had those 2 guys, which was offered by Indiana in exchange for Gordon Hayward. They decided they would rather have the trade exception instead. I think that's a questionable decision. I think it's worth asking, questions about that. And that's one of the reasons why I made the video that I did not long ago, just kind of asking questions about Danny Ainge and whether or not he's actually been a good general manager, because pretty much, the one overwhelming positive move that he's made was getting Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and then, of course, the development of those two players. But outside of that, there haven't really been a ton of positive things from a general manager perspective, from a front office perspective here in Boston, but I don't want to get sidetracked too much with this conversation. So at least there are moves to be made, and even without the trade exception, there are some semi-interesting young guys here. There are first-round picks to be traded, but the other question you have to ask when it comes to, moves being made is it worth it? Because, I think coming into the year, it was pretty clear that, Boston was going to be a team looking to make some moves because people thought they were going to be at the top of their conference. People thought they were going to be a threat. I'm not sure that people really think that anymore, and I'm not sure that they should be thinking that. I mean, this is an 8 seed as of today. So should you be cashing in on young players? Should you be trading away first-round picks in exchange for guys who could potentially help you this season? I think the answer to that is probably no. And that's just such a concerning place for Boston to be in. And I think the worst case scenario here would be, to show a bit of panic, to go out and make a move you don't need to make that only helps you this season and hinders what you're doing in the long term. And obviously we need to see what they look like with Smart fully healthy, and hopefully, Kemba can continue to come back from his injury issues and look much better. But maybe we're just in a place right now where Boston is going to be, ultimately they're going to end up as like a top 6 seed in the East, but they're not a contender this year, and they just kind of hold on to their pieces. They hold on to some of the younger guys. They hold on to all their picks so that when the one big move does come available, they're at least in a position to make it, rather than, quote unquote, giving away some assets this season and not positioning themselves well enough in order to be able to make that one big move when it does become available, whether that's Bradley Beal or unnamed future unhappy superstar that the NBA always seems to come up with year after year. So the bottom line here for Boston is the backcourt creativity is an issue. Lack of rim protection is an issue. Lack of rebounding is a problem. Relying on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to do quite literally everything is proving to not really be the best strategy. And I think it's fair to question not only the general manager stuff, but I think it's fair to question at times some of the coaching stuff as well, which is so odd for me to say because I've been on the side of Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge for years now. I thought it was a great hire to bring him in. I thought Brad Stevens has been one of the best coaches in the league since the minute that he showed up. I thought Danny Ainge was doing a good job as a general manager of kind of positioning the payroll, and maybe it all just comes down to the fact that they just had some incredibly bad luck with the Hayward injury, with, the fact that Kyrie so quickly wanted out, with, how Kemba's been dealing with some injury issues as well. Maybe that's all it comes down to, is they just had some really bad luck and they missed their window, and now they're waiting on their next one. It's just going to be significantly more difficult now to really build, a top tier team. Now that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are both going to be making, big money, Tatum a max, and then, Brown up, in the high 20s here moving forward as well, which they're certainly worth, but it just was much easier to build a competent roster around them when they were on rookie deals. If it was up to me, I would, everything kind of needs to be evaluated before this trade deadline a month from today. Boston has a month to figure out, is this a team that it's worth cashing in some assets for, or, making a kind of a minor move to go and get someone that helps you now and then potentially in the long term as well? Or is this a team that is just not going to be able to contend, not even be close to contending this season, and you just kind of run it back next year, you see if you can make some moves in the offseason, and you keep all of your chips, kind of with you before you start giving them away? And I think for me, it's so tough to tell right now. I would probably hold on to what they have and, see if they can go on a run at some point, because I still think it's possible. I still think they have the talent to be a really good team, and just kind of see if the run ever happens. And ultimately, I'd be okay kind of letting the trade deadline pass by without making a significant move, and then kind of saving that trade exception until the offseason and, your picks as well, because it'd be really unfortunate to have a big move possibly be an option for them in the offseason and then not have access to the pieces they would need to possibly make that move. So if I'm them, I'm probably chilling. I'm going to see what happens. If they start winning a ton of games before we get closer to the trade deadline, maybe you do make that move. But I think ultimately, continue to develop some of the younger players and really fully evaluate this roster. I don't think Stevens or Ainge are necessarily in trouble here in terms of their job, but, this would be, the biggest disappointment season that they've had in a while, and certainly one that causes a full evaluation of not only the roster, but the personnel as well. And, it would definitely do damage to the reputation of pretty much everyone within the Celtics organization based off how they're playing right now. it's a tough time to be a Celtics fan right now. But yeah, that is going to be the end of the first of today's videos, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.